What is up, and welcome back to the CKM Red Rugby League channel. It is another glorious Tuesday, which can only mean that we are back to take you through all the team lists, now featuring reserves as well. So thank you to the boys at StreamYard for increasing the character limit of the banners, the little scrolls along the bottom. Greatly appreciated. As always, here with me to take me through the teams, give our tips, views, and all the news is Luke Jobson. How are you going, mate?
I'm good, mate. I don't think, as the alarms go off, I don't think that I'm going to be as crazy as I was last week. I think we've recovered. We've mellowed out a little bit. Some of the crazy tips did get up, mind you. Marky Nichols doing a solid at 550. Don't know how I tipped that or why I tipped that. But anyways, yeah, really good, mate. How are you?
I'm much better, considering that you seem a little bit more calm and level last week. I expect not to finish this broadcast with a headache this week, so very much looking forward to getting into what is somewhat of a hectic team list Tuesday. Plenty of changes, plenty of enforced changes. We will start with the Eels versus the Raiders, game one, and the Eels, plenty of changes there. Penasini, Ferguson, and Arthur are all in. Dunster dropping to the reserves, as well as Cartwright, Smith coming onto the bench. Other than that, the Eels are unchanged. Obviously, with the news coming out today that Mitch Moses broke his back during Origin 3, which is a mental statement to even put out there, considering the fact that he carried on playing, and just goes to show just how tough these players are. But those are the Eels changes. Interesting to see Penasini coming into the centres for Opacek, and Ferguson demoting Dunster to the reserves, although we could see that change when it comes to game day. It could be that Dunster is running on a late fitness test. As for the Raiders, you look at their lineup and it is more changes. Rapana is into the fullback shirt. Smith Shields goes in on the left wing, knocking Valimay out to the right wing. No Jack White in this week, so Matt Frawley will be in the lineup in the 6 shirt. Other than that, the changes are few and far between. You look to the benches, it is Starling, Tomoko, Soliola and Tarpanay, with Akins, Ryan James, Siva Havili and Trey Mooney making up the bench for the Raiders. So plenty of changes, both teams missing a standout halfback. Both teams, making enforced changes on the edges as well. We'll go with you first. Not biased at all from the Parramatta fan. We'll see where he goes on this one.
Oh, that's mean, but also Parramatta 1-12. Parramatta's attack looked very clunky for 70 minutes last week, and it is only because Kevin Proctor was sent from the field for a 10-minute breather that I think Parramatta won. I say we, unbiased Para fan, as you said, completely impartial. But we, for a lot of that game, looked clunky. And even towards the back end, if the Titans had started their run maybe another, even 5 minutes earlier, I might have been really worried there. So, Jake Arthur did his job, didn't look bad, didn't look great. Dylan Brown finally did something. He scored. Miracles happen. But again, just not the Dylan Brown of last year. Penasini coming in is interesting. It's good. It's great for him. He's absolutely smashed it this year in New South Wales Cup. No Tom Opacek, I believe, due to injury. He hasn't been playing that badly. Dunster, look, I mean, he's still young. He's still very much learning the perils of first-grade football. It is a bit of a reprieve for Fergo, but it could be that they're just potentially saving Dunster for very important games that are coming up down the final stretch. Corey, back to the bench, as you mentioned. Will Smith in the 17. He, in limited game time last week, was really good for Para. As for the Raiders, I mean, I don't know what Caleb Akins has done here. I know he's not a distributing fullback. I know he's more of a running fullback, but I don't know who who he pissed off or what he did to not get picked this week. They've gone with good old Smith Shields on the wing and Rapana at the back. It's a shame for Savage. He was superb last week, was near on dominant from the back for the Raiders, was fantastic. Unfortunate that he's out for the season, but it is what it is. Tomoko on the 15. Not overly sure about that. More of an outside back. Doesn't provide a lot of coverage, I wouldn't think. So I'm not overly sure there. Potentially we see Havili come in to the bench and Tomoko drop to an 18th man sort of role there. That would be my guess. But this is a Raiders side that is going to have to really hope that Matt Frawley and Sam Williams, much like they did pre-Origin, I believe it was, they're going to have to rely on those two to have a standout game on the boot, because while their game management is fine, it's not going to win them a game against the Parramatta Eels, I shouldn't think, if Parramatta turns up. In terms of a tip, like I said, Parramatta 1-12. I don't trust the 13+ purely because it's Parramatta against a weaker side. Games that we should lose, we tend to be real close and sometimes get up. Games that we should smack opponents out of the park, for whatever reason, we play like we're SG ball side. So I'm going Parramatta 1-12, but the 13+ is $1.80 on Sportsbet at the moment. Anytime try scorer, I'd love to see Penasili on debut at 263 get over. I think it's a great shout. Seb Chris and Jared Croker both are Chris a much better defender than Croker, but still I mean, so you could definitely make a shout for him there. If you want to go forward, he's due. Reed Marnie. I know he got one last week, but that was a backup, follow the play that he started and run 3 meters off the back. Some great work from Gutherson and Nathan Brown. He's due to dart over, and if he doesn't dart over, he probably sets one up for Junior Paulo. So Paulo's my rough pick. If you want to look towards the Raiders, it's likely going to be a right side of Jake Arthur, Will Penasini, and Blake Ferguson. So the left-hand edge, really, for the Raiders are a big shout that I believe is Hudson Young. I've got a picture of this now. Jared Croker and Smith Shields. All three of those, I think, are a big shout, especially if we have Williams and Frawley dabbling behind a rushing Parramatta defense. But Parramatta 1-12 for me. I'm going Penasini on debut. If I had to pick a Raider, I'd probably go Smith Shields, first game of the year or second game of the year. And again, coming up against a rushing Parramatta edge defense that, at the worst of times, leaks like a sieve.
Okay. I like the logic. I'm going to go Para 1-12 as well. I mean, going to the history books, 35-10 on their last meeting. That was earlier this year. Time before that, 25-24. There's always a decent amount of points in this one. But I do think that this one's going to be a Parramatta win. I'm going 1-12. I'm going to go Ferguson anytime. I just think that combination of Smith, Shields and Croker, there's a chance of a little bit of miscommunication on that edge. And I think if anyone's got a point to prove in this para side right now, it's probably Blake Ferguson. So I think that he probably beats Smith Shields on the outside and gets one in the corner there. So yeah, I think the Ferg goes over for that one. That's me done for that one. We'll go to the next game. It is the Roosters versus the Knights. The Roosters making some more changes. The most surprising change of all is that Morris will drop out of the side and Billy Smith will take that 3 shirt straight off his back. Takiaho returns and he'll come out in the 17 shirt, but don't be surprised if you see Isaac Liu drop to the bench and Takiaho starting out in that 10 shirt. Based on late fitness tests and whatnot. And as for the reserves, Kieran, Baker, Morris, and Thomas. But other than that, the Roosters are unchanged. And then you look to the Knights. Ponga keeps that 1 shirt. But the big change is the number 7, Phoenix Crossland. He will be in replacing the injured Mitchell Pearce. And then it is the Saifiti brothers in the 8 and the 10, Barnett in the 12, and Watson in the 13. Fitzgibbon dropped to the reserves, and then it is that ever reliable bench of Sue, Clemmer, King, and Jones that we have learned to come to expect from the Knights. Roosters 13 plus straight off the bat. I can't see the Knights getting a great deal of points here. Clifford has started to really grow into his role at the Knights, but I think that comes alongside working with someone like Mitchell Pearce, who probably brings on his game a little more than an inexperienced Phoenix Crossland. Crossland, in the time that he was playing in the house for the Knights, was not the dominant playmaker in the 7 shirt. He was running in the 6. And I can't see which one of these two can really take this game to the Roosters. The Knights, don't get me wrong, they've been improved. The Knights have shown great promise, and their young talent has really stepped up and come to the forefront. But it's coming up against this Roosters side, I mean, it's just not there. I mean, they got thumped by the Storm last week, and it was arguably a better Knights side. You know, Frizzell just coming back from injury, he'll be feeling better for a hit out. No Fitzgibbon getting dropped to the reserves. I don't know if he's running on a late fitness test or what, but he finds himself on the outer. Connor Watson, who's been screaming out for game time in that 14 shirt, is finally promoted into the 13. I like that. I like it a lot, especially when there's news that he's unhappy at the club and potentially looking elsewhere for a new side. But I mean, the Roosters have just been, even when they don't play fantastic, they're still such a tough side to break down. You saw them beat the Cowboys 34-18 last week, and it wasn't the most concrete performance from the Roosters. They looked good, but there were patches where they weren't at their best, and even so, they ran up a good scoreline against what is probably quite a poor Cowboys side at the minute. But I can't see the Knights being much better, and that's why I'm going to go Roosters 13 plus. If I'm going to go anytime try scorer, I'm going to back Vic Radley again. He came close last week, pulled down just shy, but I've got a good feeling that Radley does get up over. And if you wanted to throw it in there as well, Knights not to score more than 18 points, under 18.5 team points for the Knights. I can't see them getting any more than a try or two out of this one. I just don't think their attack's going to have that fluency and that fluidity that they'd like to have to be able to pick apart a Roosters side.
Not bad. Don't mind that. Roosters 13 plus. Completely agree. Tedesco back. Big in. I don't quite know what the go is here with Joshy Morris. I don't know if he was dropped because of form or if he's being rested. I don't really know what the go is there. To be fair, he hasn't played overly well. Let's be frank. He hasn't played overly well since his brother's ACL injury. So I don't know if that's been playing on his mind for the season. But, you know, it's not great. You don't like to see Morris named in the reserves, but with his form, you can kind of understand it. Roosters 13 plus. Billy Smith has looked great since he's come back. He's going to go up against Tuwala, I believe.
Yep.
And while Tuwala is a good defender, the Roosters just have that fluidity in attack that I think will catch the Sharks. Wow. The Knights napping. I'm already thinking of games ahead. So I'm going to go Billy Smith anytime try scorer. If I had to throw one in for the Knights, look, I mean, you could make a good shout for Connor Watson. He is a smoky, I know, but he provides, and this is assuming he starts, because every time he's been named in the 13, he always gets benched for Suaso Sue. So keep that in mind. And he's paying $5.50 on Sportsbet at the moment. But Connor Watson is that jinking, jiving, second phase lock that just pops up wherever the ball is. And if he gets half an opportunity, he's going to take it. He and Connor Watson going to be rolling around, roaming that ruck. Kind of, if there's an offload there, it's going to be one of those two who probably get it. And they're the two most electric players on that Newcastle side. So I'm going to go Connor Watson as a smoky at 550 if you want to play it on a single. Roosters 13 plus, Billy Smith, anytime try scorer. That's my safer bet.
Okay, I think we're pretty unanimous on that one. Then it's both of us tipping the way of the Roosters. I can't see us having much difference of opinion on the next game either, and that is the Cowboys versus the Storm. And as for the Cowboys, enforced changes for them as well. Tabuai Fido into the fullback shirt. No Val Holmes this week. Talagi in the centre with Lemuelu on the other side, and it will be a debut for Bradley on the wing there for the Cowboys. And then you look to it's the standard Drinkwater, Dearden halves combination. Then it's Molo and McLean in the props, Robson in the 9, Wright, Dunn, Taumalolo, and then over to the bench, Gilbert, Lukey, Hess, and Granville with Burt, Bell, Holler, and Dayan RC on the reserves bench. As for the Storm, Eremaya is in for Jennings this week. Bit of a change up there. The return of Ryan Pappenhausen as well. He will be in the 17 shirt alongside Asafa Solomona on the interchange as well in the 16. So Kamikamitha is promoted to the 13 with Lewis in the 11 with Cooper Johns in the 6 shirt there for the Storm. The Storm, again, just flexing their depth on the whole competition there. As for their reserves, Laureiro, Gran, Lumi, and Seve make up the Storm's reserves. Straight off the bat, I'd like to pitch the Storm on a minus 29.5. I think that they absolutely rout the Cowboys here. Tabuai Fido is a good fullback. There's no doubt about it. He's great for those swing plays that see players get exposed on the edges, especially when teams start to jam in, when you've got the likes of Olam and Smith who do like to come in and try and shut down any sort of attacking opportunity. But Tabuai Fido has got his work cut out trying to break down this Storm side, and I can't see them holding up here. I can't see them getting a lot of points out of this one. The Storm have been fantastic all season long. They've not really had a bad patch. The bad patch could be yet to come. It could be one of those things. But when you look to the bench and they've got the likes of Penne, Asafa Solomona and Pappenhausen just waiting there, it doesn't fill you with much hope for how a game's going to go, knowing that you've got players that will be making way, like the likes of Nico Hines, who's arguably the form fullback of alongside Tom Trebojevic of this year. Kamikamitha in the 13 easily interchanged for another big man in Asafa Solomona. If Johns is having a bad game in the halves with Hughes, you can easily just interchange Booth. They're so interchangeable. Honestly, the Storm are built like Lego this year. There's just pieces that you can just swap in and out as you please. It's kind of sickening to see. I'm not a massive fan of the Melbourne Storm, but you do have to just sit back and appreciate the depth of talent pool that they have managed to build there over in Victoria. But the Cowboys, you look at their squad, you've got Bradley, who'll be lining up against Eremaya. As we mentioned there, Tabuai Fido is going to be working both sides and trying to create space there. Cohen Hayes is having to be used as an impact because he's not really doing the job that he's meant to be doing, to the point where now Frankie Molo's coming in and he's starting prop, which, Molo was making plenty of starts and as was McLean, but over Hess, you wouldn't have seen it, this time last year. So I just can't see the Cowboys holding up here. I'm going to go, I went Olam last time, so I'm not going to go Olam. I'm going to go Eremaya getting up over Bradley. I'm going to go Storm on a minus 29.5 handicap. I'm going to say back the over on points as well. I believe there's going to be points in this one. I believe that most of them will be scored by the Melbourne Storm.
You're going to have a laugh because you said minus 29.5. And I think your theory is that's going to be a big enough margin that it'll add some value.
Don't.
I'm going to throw this one in a same game multi. You said minus 29.5, Aramea and over?
Over. Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Where's Aramia? Who, mind you say he's going to get over Bradley. Bradley is a big boy. He's 194 centimeters. He's no small chook.
No.
3 legs for 375.
Oh, it makes me sick.
Oh, that is quite sickening.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a bit of a different bet this week for this one. I don't think it's an unreasonable bet either. For those that have sports bet, you'd know if you go to the doubles, there is the option for a team score double. It is a cash out. It is a bet that you can cash out on. I don't know if it's on TAB, Ladbrokes, Neds, all that, and of course, gamble responsibly if you take these tips. But there is an option to go North Queensland Cowboys 0-10, Melbourne Storm 31 plus for their totals during the game. That's paying $240. I would slam that. I don't see how the Cowboys score more than 10 points with how clunky their attack is and just how strong the Melbourne defense is. Melbourne should run riot. I'd be very surprised if they don't hit 50, which makes this bet even more significant. You're essentially thinking that the Cowboys are going to score less than 2 tries with a penalty goal or a conversion, and the Storm are going to score 5 converted tries plus. To me, that's a pretty safe bet at $2.40. If I had to go on an anytime try scorer, I mean, can I pull out the 1 through 17 for the Storm again, Matthew? I feel like that's a pretty good shout.
Do it. Welcome to Counting with Luke.
On today's episode of Counting with Luke, we go from 1 to 17, boys and girls. Pappenhausen at $1.50 is no value whatsoever, especially with him coming off the bench. That said, if Bellamy pulls his little trick like he is known to do, we could see Pappy start at fullback. Hines will go to 6. Cooper Johns will drop to the bench, if not out. And you see someone like a Jordan Grant or a Trent Loiero come in. Aaron Booth is a bit interesting as well. I read today that he was coming back off a knee injury and wasn't expected back for a couple of weeks. So potentially Booth gets dropped and Cooper goes to the bench, or Chris Lewis goes to the bench. Loiero comes in. There's a whole bunch of changes here that I could see happening that are very feasible. But anytime try scorer, Nico Hines is on a bit of a streak. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We'll go with him at $1.83. Let me pull the sports bet back up. I just have to look at the team list there for a second. Jerome Hughes at $2.30. I'll eat some of that, as well as Brandon Smith at $2.20. If you think the Cowboys go over, you could make a strong case for the debutant. RME is decent in the air, but Kane Bradley, the reports coming out of the Cowboys camp is this dude is a gun in the air. I think Xavier Coates' gun. So at $3.25 on debut in front of home fans, I could absolutely see that happening. But yeah, the bet for me is the North Queensland Cowboys to score 10 or less, essentially, and the Storm to score more than 30.
Okay, similar lines of thinking, different tact and approach. I like it. I think we'll get off that one and we'll get to the Rabbitohs versus the Warriors. So, looking first of all at the Rabbitohs, the obvious change is Josh Mansour coming back in on the wing. Tane Milne coming out of the squad for Jackson Paulo, who is back into the 5 shirt. You've got to feel for Milne a little bit there. 6 tries since he's made his return to since he's featured in a Rabbitohs shirt and he drops out of the side. Other than that, no real changes for the Rabbitohs. Milne in the 14, Host in the 15, the outgoing Patrick Margot in the 16, with the news breaking yesterday that he'll be joining Super League side Wigan as of next season, and Jai Arrow in the 17. Over to the reserves, it's Burns, Cartwright, Blake, Tafe, and Hawkins in the 21. Looking over to the Warriors, and the obvious exemption from their squad is, of course, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, who falls out of the squad with a head injury this week. Didn't make the protocols, unfortunately, so he'll fall out. So it's Reece Walsh at 1, with Tennis Lesniak at 2, Pompey, Aitken, and Montoya making the remainder of the back line, with that half-back partnership of Nikorima and Townsend in the 6 and 7. Tavonga comes into the 9 shirt from the bench, Murchie into the 11, and Curran in 13. Over to the bench, it's Otakolo in the 14, Katoa, Afoa, and Armawa making up the remainder of the bench. And then over to the reserves, it's Evans, Corsi, O'Sullivan, and Murdoch Masilla in the 22 shirt. I potentially might tip a Warriors 1-12 here. Potentially. I've been going back and forth on this one. The Warriors will do this. The Warriors will turn up to a game they have no right to win and will somehow turn it into an absolute slugfest. They're notorious for it. They are the most rocks and diamonds team in the competition, and I could potentially be looking at a Warriors upset. But I do feel that I'm going to go Rabbitohs 1-12. I think the Warriors will run them close. But I'm gonna back the Rabbitohs for this one. I just think that the absence of Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, although he'd have probably not played in the one, he'll be severely missed. Walsh is growing into that 1 shirt, but he's still got a lot of learning to do, especially when he comes up against the likes of his opposite number in Latrell Mitchell, who has taken this season firmly by the scruff of the neck. That Townsend-Nikorima combination is still not clicking for me yet. It gives me great concern. Ewan Aitken is back after missing, I think, 3 games in total in the time that he was absent for his isolation period off the back of that Virgin flight with Josh Curran, who did come back last week. Aitken was not picked. He was picked. Rocco Berry was picked over Aitken, but they've gone with Aitken this week. So he's 3 weeks out of practice at this point. Lodge is still learning the systems. I mean, the Warriors have got huge forwards. I mean, Lodge, Fanua Blake, Murdoch Masilla coming from the reserves potentially, and then you got Katoa, Afoa, and Armawa all just sitting there on the bench waiting to go. If the Warriors can force the Rabbitohs into playing up the middle, I can see that this one being close, but I think the Rabbitohs will just have them stripped on the edges, especially with Alex Johnston missing. I think he'll be a big loss for the Rabbitohs. Of course, currently the NRL's leading try scorer. When you lose a player like Johnston, you definitely feel the effects of that. But you've got the ever capable Josh Mansour waiting to fill his boots, and Jackson Paulo as well, who's not too shabby a finisher, waiting to pick up a spot there. So, but I do feel a little bit bad for Tane Milne. No Benji Marshall, obviously, for the Rabbitohs this week as well. So I think that they will just stick to one system and one system only for the entirety of this game. And if the Rabbitohs can make that system click, it'll be a Rabbitohs win. I am going to go 1-12 though, just because I think the Warriors have a little bit more capability into making the Rabbitohs come out of those systems a little bit and really force that agenda and turn it into just a very sloppy game up the middle.
I had very nearly the exact same logic last week, and you gave me a 5-minute lesson in how to tip.
But I didn't follow through with it. That's the difference.
Sir. I don't know if the Rabbitohs can play any other way but through the middle. There's no Alex Johnson, as you mentioned. Tane Milne is on the bench. Granted, now that is part of that supposedly is a injury forced. They're just kind of see how he's going. But part of that as well is he can back up and play as a second rower. He can play as a middle forward or an edge forward. And of course, he can cover the backs. So it's not as if he's being dropped completely, but I agree that he's being hard done by a little bit. Good to see the Sauce back though. It's always nice to have a cheeky Sauce on the edge there. Bunny's 13+ for me. The Warriors, I don't know how they were able to grind out and keep the game competitive last week, losing Roger and Tohu in the first 15 minutes or so. Those are two big losses right there, and Tohu unfortunately costing me my Supercoach season, which is quite sad for me, but obviously his ACL, you can't do anything about that. He's a gun of a player. He's a workhorse for the Warriors, and hopefully he comes back next year fit, firing, and stronger than ever. At least it'll be, he might be pushing it for round one, actually. He might just get there, depending on how he goes. Adam Fanua-Blake and Lodge were superb last week for the Warriors. They were just stars. I don't know where that Matt Lodge has been the last couple of years, but he was fantastic. I don't know what rocket ship was sent. I don't know if he flew with Virgin, with Branson to space, or if he was trying to prove something to old mate Jeffrey Bezos before he gets shafted up there. I don't know what the go was, but he was superb. I don't know about Sirinen coming in for Tohu. I would have thought that Katoa would have got the start. So we'll see how that one plays out. Like I said, though, Bunny's 13 plus. Their attack is just more crisp, more fluid. They've got Latrell back. They still have Gagai and Campbell Graham. Jackson Paulo, as you mentioned, Matty, a very good finisher. And old mate, Marky Nichols. Well, hello, sir, you beautiful balding bastard. Oh, it was orgasmic watching him go over in the last couple of minutes at a $5.50 bet for the anytime try scorer. So if anyone did get on that, it was a chef's kiss all around there. In terms of anytime try scorers, I'm not going Mark again this week. I'm not quite that crazy. Cody Walker's due. He hasn't scored in the last couple. He's been a much better distributor this year, working at the back with Latrell or his own cutout ball out to AJ. The fact is he'll have Mansour out there. While Mansour is no AJ, the sauce can still finish. He's the nice little sauce on top of the juicy meat pie there. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sauce goes over as well as Cody Walker, attacking that left side that now doesn't have, or that right side for the Warriors, that doesn't have a Tohu Harris, that has a bit of a more defensively inept player in Bailey Sirinen. If you want to go a Warrior who scores, you could absolutely make a case for Reece Walsh. The other one that I wouldn't mind throwing a cheeky bet on is Marcelo Montoya. Believe he will be on that right side for... No, that'll be Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, sorry. Throw it on Dallin, not Marcelo, although Marcelo could be a shot as well. Dallin on the right side against Josh Mansour. Mansour not great in the air. Dallin's got the height. He's got the power to get up and over. I wouldn't be surprised, assuming that the Warriors can get their kicking game on point. I would not be surprised to see Dallin go over. So if you're throwing a multi together, Bunnies 1-13, Latrell, Cody Walker, and Dallin anytime.
Okay, I'm going to go Rabbitohs 1-12. I'm going to go Damien Cook anytime. I just think that those big Warriors forwards will start to tire. And if anyone is going to take advantage of that, it will be the beach sprinter, Damien Cook, shooting at a dummy half like he's just been fired out of a rocket. I think that's where I'll go on that one. And we'll get over to the next game. And that is the Sea Eagles versus the Tigers. Starting off with the Sea Eagles, Tom Trbojevic is named this week and will be expected to play. Obviously missing out last week, rested off the back of Origin. Over to the number 13 shirt, and Jake Trbojevic is back from injury as well. So Manly fans will be relieved to see him back. Alaye will line up against his former employees in the 15 shirt, with Kepi bumped back to the bench, Sipley in the 17. De Luis demoted to the reserves with Cade Cust, Moses Sule, and Jack Gashevsky. Other than that, the Sea Eagles are unchanged. Over to the Tigers, and there is a frightening edge that we talked about a hot minute ago. And that is the combination of Talau and Mamalo. We will finally see that if the numbers are, if the teams line up as the numbers suggest. So it's Laurie in the 1, Nofaluma in the 2, with Porger, who retains his spot in the centres. Talau and Mamalo will be towering on one edge. Dewey and Brooks are the 6 and 7. If it's broke, don't fix it. Love to see that out of Maguire. Utoka Manu and Tamo are your props. Liddle in the 9, Garner, Leilua, and McKaylee making up the remainder of the forwards, with Offa Hengawe, Twal, Simpkins, and Mbai, the same bench as named last week. And then over to the reserves, it's Cheekham, Simpkin, Seyfarth, and Blow for the Tigers. I predict nothing but a Seagulls 13 plus victory here. I think the Tigers, they played well enough to get a result against the Broncos. The Broncos obviously not one of the premier sides at the minute. They still leaked 24 points, I think it was, in total, which if you're going to be that poor defensively against anyone that can score points, and a Seagulls side that went on some form of run, racking up 50-point victories as and when they pleased, you don't want to be that poor defensively against them, especially coming up against a rested Tom Trbojevic, who will be, feeling like he's got a little bit of time to make up for Jake Trbojevic coming back from injury as well. Cherry Evans, bit of a point to prove off the back of a poor Origin series. Lockie Croker desperately fending off Cade Cuss to keep that 9 shirt. He'll be in line for another good game. Dylan Walker consistently knocking on the door, trying to get into that starting lineup, but having to settle for a 14 shirt instead. I mean, the Seagulls there, just based on that alone, the Seagulls could easily hit 50 against the Tigers here. Will they do it? I'm not 100%. I'm not going to go that outlandish, but I do predict that it'll be a Seagulls 13 plus win. I'd say back the over definitely. And as for an anytime try scorer, stick it on Brad Parker. I just think that he might be the only one of the backs that potentially provides any value, with the exception of Kieran Foran. But Foran scored not too long ago. It might have even been last week, and I can't see him grabbing another one anytime soon. So I'm going to go Brad Parker for an anytime. I just don't see the Tigers being able to hold out if they play as poorly defensively as they did last week.
I could almost say that I could do this in 60 seconds. I'll give you a bit more depth than that, but it's a pretty easy one for me. Manly 13 plus, Jason Saab, Tom Trbojevic, and Ruben Garrick anytime try scorers. Whenever Tom doesn't play, Jason Saab looks like a fish out of water. Whenever Tom Trbojevic is in the side, he is an absolute superstar. I don't get it. I have not seen a player so reliant on a playmaker inside as I have Jason Saab. But it works for him. He's 3rd, I believe, in the try-scoring ranks this year. And I'm trying to jog my memory without diving back through the stats over the last month and a half, but I don't think there's been a game where at least when Tom Trebojevic's played, where at least 2 of these 3 haven't scored. It's either been one hasn't scored or all 3 have scored. So I'm going with those 3. You could absolutely make a case for Olakau'atu or Josh Schuster as well. Schuster looked great in the 6 last week, but looked even more threatening as a back rower while he was there for about 25 minutes. He now goes back to his preferred left edge back row role. Could absolutely see him diving in from close range while the Tigers have to slide through and try to contain Tommy Turbo. If you're going for anyone for the Tigers, I mean, Dane Laurie is probably your best bet at $3 at the moment. He's looked so good this year. He's been the shining star out of Leichhardt in a pretty dreary year. Let's be honest here. You could also make a value play for Dewey at $4.50, but For me, it's an easy one. Saab, Trebojevic, Garrick. Anytime that pays $3. I know it's not great value, but I mean, the way that those three play when Trebojevic is in the side, it's better than bank interest at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, we'll touch briefly on the Talau and Marlowe. We got very excited by that edge at one point. You know, two very big players. You can see potentially both sides targeting edges with kicks. If Cherry Evans has got his kicking game on, he'll be trying to pick Saab out, going over the top of Norfoluma. As for the Tigers, likewise, they'll be going to the other side. They'll be trying to get Talau and Mamalo. You saw what Mamalo can do in the air, up over the top of the likes of Morgan Harper and Ruben Garrick, and so it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. But I firmly believe that the Sea Eagles have got this one by a landslide. And speaking of landslide victories, it is the Panthers versus the Broncos. That segue explains itself. Panthers 13 plus. RSPCA to be informed of 17 Broncos being ruthlessly flogged. I mean, what more can we say? I mean, we'll go through the lineups as a pure formality here. It's Edwards in the 1 shirt, Staines in the 2, Crichton in 3. Burton is back into the 4 with the return of Jerome Luai, Brian Toto in the 5, as mentioned there, Luai in the 6. Tyrone May keeps the 7 shirt with Moses Leota and Fisher Harris in the props, Coruscant in the 9, Kikau, Capewell, Yo are the 11, 12, and 13, with Kenny, Sorensen, Leniu, and Martin. So an unchanged bench. And then down to the reserves, where you'll find Brent Naden, who has been bumped from the centres into the 18 shirt, Momirovski, Eisenhoof, and Targo. And then we go over to the Broncos, and Tessinu is still the first choice fullback, and rightly so. And then it's Oates, Staggs, Farnworth, and Coates, with Gamble in the 6, Croft in the 7. Flegler returns to the lineup in the 8 shirt, with Turpin in 9, Haas backing up into the 10. Number 12 will be Jordan Riki. He bumps Rabatit into the 17 shirt. Kennedy into the 15 from the 8 from last week, with Pakes remaining in the 14. Palacia in 16, and then the reserves are Bullimore, Arthurs, Willison, and Xavier Coates. So, I mean, what can the Broncos do here? It's not looking great for them, to be honest. That Panthers lineup is damn near full strength, with the exception of Nathan Cleary. It's not looking great for them.
You think? It's looking pretty brutal. It's looking really brutal. I don't know if we'll be needing to call it RSPCA. It won't be animal cruelty, because the Panthers are natural hunters. So I don't really know if we'll need to call the RSPCA. Might need to call David Attenborough if you've got his number and send him over for Saturday night. That'd be great. RSPCA maybe. Yeah, Panthers 13 plus. The Broncos, look, not going to lie, they had me in the first half there, the Broncos. I thought my tip was looking real pretty there, and then the Broncos did Broncos things. So we're not going to talk about that. Anytime try scorers for old mate Penrith. Well, where do we start? Mr. Right, you got Toto, who provides no value. Staines, who scores once every couple of games. $1.40, probably not going to touch that. You could look at someone like a Kurt Capewell at 310, who could be a very good shout, with a forever aging yet now ageless, Alex Glenn and Jordan Ricky, who very good second rower, but very, very iffy. You could also say something for Billy Kickow as well, who is $1.91. Don't know if I would touch it there in terms of betting, but just for a tip, If you want to throw it into a multi, maybe Billy Kickout. I believe he will go up against Ricky on the right side there, and Kickout from close range is as good as gold. For the Broncos, pretty hard to look past Stags. For whatever reason, he's not played 80 minutes the last 2 weeks. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say it. If Kevy Walters leaves Stags on there, the Broncos potentially take that extra time. But you notice that they took Stags off in the last 10 minutes last week, and their attack down that right-hand side went to absolutely nothing. It was Ricky Arthurs, I believe, and Coates. Arthurs is not Stags. He's not Stags defensively. He doesn't have the same attacking prowess as Stags, and Arthurs has played more wing than he has centre. Not Stags. I know Stags is going to be the Brisbane Six next year, all things, coming out of sunshines and daisies, but Stags is still at his peak, one of the best centres in the game. So I'm going to go with him if I'm looking at a Broncos scorer. I mean, the way Gamble's running the ball, Gamble at $7 is not a bad shout. Gamble is a running 6. If he finds a gap, he will try and take that gap on. If he can slide through a gap at $7 for a Panthers side that doesn't usually leak points, I know, but every now and then when they have a big lead, tend to turn off for a couple of minutes. $7 is a shout. But we're going kick out. We're going Panthers 13+. Luai coming back from injury probably gets over. Plus, I just want to see one of his try celebrations. If you're going to throw a Broncos try scorer in the multi, you throw Stags in. Gamble, you spec at $7, but you don't throw too much on it.
Okay. Notice there I made a bit of a boo-boo on the lineup with the Broncos. It's Isako in the 5, not Coates. Coates is in the 21. The Broncos may be short on players, but they are not cloning them and using them twice. Going to the Panthers, 13+ is an absolute no-brainer. Minus 29.5 on the Panthers as well. I think it should bring some value. The Panthers on the NRL stats are only averaging out at about 29 points a game. But again, I can see them potentially just flogging the Broncos here. The Broncos under 18.5 team points scored. And as for an anytime try scorer, I'm going to go Matt Burton. I think he's about the only back that will potentially bring you any value out of bagging a try there. And going by the numbers, he lines up against Oates and Stags, who arguably that is Stags like to come out and make a bit of a name for himself, and he'll probably jam in at some point looking for a big shot on a smaller, more slender Matt Burton, and probably just leave Oates in no man's land, and that'll create the gap for Burton. So that's where my logic lays on that one. So go those 3, and that's my tips for that one.
Very nice.
Okay, and we will go to the Dragons versus the Titans. The Dragons see plenty of changes. Dufty is back in the 1 shirt. Pereira in the 2. Ramsey moving to the centre with Max Feagai on the wing. Sullivan comes into the 6. Hunt remains in the 7. And then it is Kerr coming into the 10 with Jack Bird into the 2nd row. Maguire comes into the 13. DeBellin is moved back to the bench. Fuimaono comes in, as does Adam Clune, in the 14 shirt.
Go on there for a second. Nathan Cleary.
Nathan Clune, I said. I'm pretty sure he's an actor or something. I don't know where my mind went. Ellis, Abon, Birds, and Sloan are the remainers of the reserves. Blooper reel, please. Over to the Titans, and there is another frightening edge to talk about. Mazu is back for the Titans, and he will occupy the left edge by the numbers, with Kelly as his centre. Herbert and Thompson are the other combination. Sexton comes into the 7. He will make his Titans debut. There's a lot of buzz around him. Again, Mitch Rain is back into the 9 shirt, so Clark is out on the outer. Fotowaker in the 10, Proctor, Fafita, and Faisal Malawi make up the remainder of the forwards, with Tyrone Peachy in that ever-reliable 14 shirt. Lasoni, Jolliffe, and Firma making up the remainder of the bench. And over to the reserves, it is Masters, McIntyre, Boyd, and Campbell for the Titans. Titans 13 plus. Easy call for me. And I'm going to say Marziu and Kelly to bag here for the Titans. The Dragons, again, a lot of changes. Cody Ramsey and Max Feagai between them. Not a great deal of NRL first grade experience. They come up against Marziu and Kelly. Marziu is a substantially large human being. If you found him in bed with your wife, you would tuck him in and ask him what time he wants his taxi calling. He is terrifying. Kelly is just a powerhouse in the centre. And between them, they are likely just to go over the 2 smaller opponents that they come up against in Ramsey and Feagai. I can't see it going any other way. The Titans, they looked improved. They put on a better performance. They were just a little short in a few areas. I expect them to be better this week, and I see the Dragons bearing the brunt of that, unfortunately for them. So I'm going Titans 13 plus. Marziu and Kelly both on the anytime try scorer market for me.
I love that for a super coach purpose that you're picking Greggy Marziu. I love that because I just love watching him play. And I love that it's going to be sexy time with the big beast. That's all Titans Twitter has been on about this week. It's been sexy time with Toby Sexton. Yes, the little shoulder shimmy in between. But I have no doubt that sexy time is going to link up with the big beast known as Greggy Boy for a meat pie, if not 2. So I love that tip. 13 plus I'm a bit iffy on. I'll go Titans 1 to 12. The Dragons, we have to, when taking into account tips, we have to take into account 2 things here. 1, they're still a top 8 side. But 2, they lose 4 players this week, is it? Norman goes out with actually, who else has dropped out of the COVID 12? Isn't it? I think it's just Norman and Ford, maybe.
I think so, because Bird's moved from centre to second row. Ramsey's gone from fullback to centre. Beale's come in. Pereira's come in. Ravalawa still missing for the Dragons.
Yeah, suspended though.
Yep. DeBellin moved into the 17. Maguire back into the 13. I mean, the Dragons have got a few players back. Sloan dropped out again, but because they've got Duffy back. I still don't see the Dragons measuring up. I can see the Titans running a bit of a ramp on this one.
I don't know about a ramp, but I definitely agree. The Titans here, they've got a stronger forward pack. David Fafita against Jack Bird. Whew, that's going to be a battle and a half. Big Tino going up against Joshua Maguire. The Peach is potentially going to run rampant off the bench. This is the sort of game that's going to suit him. I think it's going to be a fast-flowing game. It's going to be Brimson v. Dufty. Ash Taylor, I think, will hopefully get a new lease on life with no Fogarty in there. It's a shame for Fogarty. He could be back as early as next week with there being no damage to bone or to ligaments and tendons around. It was a clean compound dislocation. So as ugly as it looked, it could only be the 1 week for him. But it's debut time. It's audition time for Sexy Man, for Toby Sexton to bid, to put a bid in for next year. If he doesn't play well, Tanner Boyd looks to potentially shore that spot up, at least to start next year. And I don't know if Sexton's going to get another opportunity. The Titans are still fighting for their first finals berth in 8 years. I don't remember the last time the Titans were in a finals campaign, to be honest. Titans 1-12. Greggy Boy to score. I'd love to see Toby go over. I don't think he will, though. So don't take that as an official tip. David Fafita against Jack Bird. I'm all over that. If you want to make a case for any of the Dragons, Dufty, probably. That's probably your best bet. And it'll be a breakaway try as well. It'll be one of those plays where he jinks and jives through the own half, or gets an offload off of one of the forwards, someone like a Laurie or a Sims, and just burst through some tied forwards. Man, Dufty feed Brimson. That's tasty.
Absolutely. I mean, we're both backing Titans. We believe different score lines. I don't have much confidence in the Dragons really getting many points out of this one. It'll be individual efforts that get them points. I can't see them clicking well as a team. Sullivan's not had a lot of game time. He's going to be partnering Hunt in the 7. Hunt's played a lot of ball at 9 this year. You've got Clune, who's still waiting around, found himself massively on the outer at the Dragons and not really had much time playing again this year. So that spine is clunky as hell. It's just not. It's not a good looking spine for me. You look to the bench and you got Peachy, arguably one of the best 14s in the comp right now. When he comes on and just does what he does, Lasoni, serviceable. Jolla does his bit. Fermor, tenacious in the second row. You look to the Dragons bench for Mayono, Tanoa Brown, DeBellin. DeBellin's the only one there that I potentially call out as having some form of impact, and we're still yet to see the state rep Jack DeBellin that we were seeing before for the Dragons. But I think we will get off that one and we will wrap things up with the Bulldogs versus the Sharks. And the Bulldogs, not many changes at all to report. Ockenbaugh will be celebrating a new 2-year deal with the Dogs by starting out on the wing. Sia Manafanai into the 8 shirt. Marshall King in the 9, replacing Katoa. Hetherington bumps Thompson into the loose forward role. And then the benches are pretty much unchanged. As for the reserves, Flanagan, Katoa, Manu, and Dory. Bulldogs fans, you will be elated in the news that Lockie Lewis may have found a new team for next year. He's potentially linking up with the Australian Olympic judo team after last week's hip throw. So he may be on his way out of the Dogs. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But he'll be looking forward to getting into camp and working with the boys. Over to the Sharks, and it's pretty much an unchanged lineup for the Sharks. Rudolph is into the 8. Braley remains in the 9. Woods in the 10. Talakai comes into the second row, and then it's Wilton Williams. And then over to the bench, it is Hiroti, Hunt, Nikora, and Hamlin ULA. And then in the reserves, Magulius, Metcalf, Fafita, and Luar. Sharks 13 plus. The Bulldogs offer me absolutely nothing to believe that they are any better this week than they were last week. Even if somebody doesn't decide that MMA is their new sport of choice during a halftime interval, I still can't see the Dogs hanging with the Sharks in this one. I think that the likes of Ramian, and Johnson will have an absolute field day against this Bulldogs side that have just been very poor defensively. Siu Manafanai brings a little bit of bulk to the starting lineup. Putting Hetherington into that starting prop role, I can't say I'm mad at it. Using Thompson as a powerhouse 13, your traditional big, strong, aggressive ball running type 13. Again, I like it out of the Dogs, but I just don't see enough there for me to believe that the Dogs even hang close with this one. So straight from the jump, I'm going Sharks 13 plus.
You did watch the game last week, right?
I did.
The same, I know that, Judo Man was dominating the news, but this is the Bulldogs side that was up against one of the premiership contenders. And arguably takes them the full 80 if he doesn't have a brain fade because Cody Walker was a hypocrite and said he needed to go back to reserve grade, yet Cody Walker was there until he was 26. In terms of, I mean, I say that, but I'm still going to, I'm going to say the Sharks, but honestly, the way the Sharks went last week, it doesn't fill me with any great confidence. Sean Johnson was MIA. I understand that he's now the game controller, more so than the breakaway man, but that doesn't mean that you just go missing in action. Trindle has been superb in the 6. He's keeping out the likes of Connor Tracy from a 5'8" spot. And obviously you've got someone like Magoulias who can play half if need be as well. Obviously Townsend moved across the ditch as well as a result of the likes of Tracy and Trindle coming up. But yeah, Sharks 1-12, I'm going to say. I will say that Ockenbaugh scores. He looked great last week, at least close to the line. Second game back. Hopefully it's not second game syndrome, but I think he needed that game coming back off an ACL to just get back into the feel of top flight rugby league. Hasn't played a lot of football, if any, this year. Looked better as the game went on. So I'll go Ockenbaugh anytime. I'm going to go back on Ramian once again. Got it done for me last week. I don't know if it's another one of those tries where he comes back in off the outside and angles in towards the post, or if it's a short ball. But I believe I've got to try and picture the Dogs' defense here. Is it going to be Hopewadi on the left? On the Dogs' left side defense, I believe. No, it'll be Shop. It'll be Shop who was on. No, it will be Hopewadi. Sorry, don't mind me. Hopewadi, not an overly strong defender. Jesse Ramian's a strong ball runner when he wants to be. I think Ramian goes over from close range. Toby Rudolph. Oh, Toby Rudolph's a prop this week. Hello. That's good for Supercoach purposes, potentially. If you want any value, Teague Wilton. I haven't got the game up, but I'm assuming it's about 450 for young Teague. Strong carrier, close to the line, will cause havoc on the Sharks' left-hand side. That's probably it. Trindle as well, you could make an argument for, but Sharks 1-12, I'm going to go with Ramian and Ockenbaugh anytime.
Okay. I'm going to go... The thing that frustrates me the most out of the Bulldogs at the minute is that Meany's on his way out. So why are you keeping him in the full-back role? You've got Allen there on big money, on the wing, not really doing much. Bring Allen into the full-back role, get him used to being there. I doubt the Bulldogs are going to recruit another full-back. I mean, there's rumours that Dufty's on his way. Still, potentially having Allen there for a bit of cover for the time being might not be a terrible decision. But, I mean, over to the Sharks. I've already earmarked Ramian and Johnson as two players I anticipate to go over any time here. I'm going to stick with Sharks 13 plus. I just think the Sharks are a better attacking threat, and the Bulldogs can be very weak against teams that have a tendency to record strong amounts of points. The fact that Lewis retains a 6 shirt, despite the fact that he pretty much cost the Dogs the game like last week, and you've got Flanagan sitting down there in the reserves, blows my mind. I think that you've got a culture issue there straight off the bat. Players need to be held accountable, and when you do silly things like that, regardless of whether somebody's under your skin or not, you're a professional. You need to make sure that you're acting in your team's best interest, not your own best interest. Unfortunately, Lockie Lewis didn't do that, and realistically should have paid the price this week, regardless of how on the outer the Flanagan is at the Dogs right now, just to make an example. But I think that all those things factor into a Sharks 13 plus victory. Jesse Ramian anytime and Sean Johnson anytime for me, and that'll do me for that game.
All right. Well, I think for the most part we almost kind of agree on tips this week.
Yep.
Well, that's boring. You want to change it?
No.
Broncos 50 plus.
Thanks for watching. As you can see on the banner below, all our individual previews are going to be up on our Recast channel. We are working with the Phenomenal Recast now to bring you great content over there in short form as well. So if there's any games that you've missed, or you just simply want to go back and rewatch some of your favourite moments, if you do have any favourite moments of this broadcast in particular, you can do over on the web address below. Search for ourselves over at CKM Red Rugby League and let us know that you're tuning in as well. All there is to do is thank you for joining us, and we hope that you'll be with us again next week as we go through round 20 of the NRL, and we will see you then.